Kobolds can have a Diddy too? Well, let's talk about the mating manual and the diddler. So in prior videos, we've established that baby kobolds are called Kobolds. That's a kobold, and that's a kobold. And so the thing to understand is that kobolds are cute. They are incredibly cute, which means that people want them. And people who are willing to take a wild animal out of its habitat and then make it a pet is called a kobold keeper. And they have a couple different ways of doing this, but the most predominant way is they will hire bounty hunters or poachers to go out, find a pregnant kobold, bring her back to a facility, let her give birth, and then they'll basically just boot the mother out. They'll take the babies and immediately put it in the face of the kobold keeper. And they do this so that kobold has the highest chance of imprinting on the kobold owner. But here's the thing about kobolds is that they are considered cans, creatures, animals, and non-eligible of mortal rights. And what that means is that basically if you are banging a can, then you are considered effectively a zoophile because it's not either sentient enough or the general world doesn't agree that you should be doing it with this thing. And cans are usually agreed upon by organizations like the Waneshai Categories Association. And then you have people that love to just get their rocks off of punishing people like DPAS, Decent People Against Zoophilia, who will hunt these people down and bring them to justice, whether that be in the courts or in the streets. But it is an important note that we discuss that not every region agrees on the catalog of what is a can. Like the Imperivan is a perfect example of one that does not fit this definition clearly. And Slumbions are another example of a creature that does not fit this example. Because, for example, in Stroke's territory, Impiervans are his holy animal, but he considers them a can, but the government gives him special rights that are effectively beyond normal mortal rights. But Sumbrions are also considered not cans in Stroke's territory because they hunt his holy animal, so he wants them to stand trial. But Slumbrions in Vershard's territory are considered non-cans, so he can then extradite them to his territory after killing an Impiervan, so he can hold them in his justice system, because they can be his citizens if they're born in his territory. So now that we've established what a can is, it's important to recognize that for this context, kobolds are considered cans. And because some kobold keepers decide to take a relationship a little bit too far, this is when we get into kiddlers, basically owners that sleep with kobolds. And what if I told you the reason that they get exploited to the point that they are is because of pseudoscience and influencers of this product. So let's jump into the mating manual and I'll explain what I mean, because there was an individual known as Master Researcher of Nature, MRN, which is virtually a PhD, LinkedIn, who was a forest elf, went on record, wrote a book and said this, and I quote, "Kobolds have shown significant benefits to owners as 78% have reported to have a reduction in signs of anxiety. And I've also confirmed that 14% of owners have been cured of depression." And this is what has led to the massive hike in people keeping kobolds as pets because they believe it's going to cure mental issues. Does it now? That's up for debate. It was very sketchy research at best. And then, out of the 53% of people who had been caught of zoophilia with kobolds, had this to say. MRN LinkedIn study and popular kobold zoophilia influencer Ace Ridley Shore-Un, who is a dwarf, that had smacks with them would provide higher levels of happiness and bring fortune to their lives. Pretty disgusting stuff that people get into. But I do have good news, because you remember DPAS, the Decent People Against Zoophilia? They have had to neutralize 82 zoophiles while attempting apprehension, and sentences ranges for these fines go up to payment and 4 years in prison, unless you're doing it in Mount Motra, where the minimum sentence is 6 months in jail with hard labor, rehabilitation, and a max sentence of 14 years, non-adjusted for species. So as a professor of fantasy species biology, I'm going to have to say this: I don't recommend you sleep with a kobold. But if you want to know more about the lore, go ahead and grab a sub so you can see the mating manual come to fruition. But if simply seeing the development ain't enough by grabbing a ruby gold, go ahead and get an original character in the lore by grabbing a diamond. And you too can join the raid coming up in April.